Hello everyone, I wish you peace and happiness. Are you all healthy? Today, I will continue to share with you the difficult, scarce and challenging days of Huyen and her mother trying to make a living. In the morning, in a small house amidst a peaceful countryside, gentle sunlight filters through bamboo walls, bringing the fresh air of a new day. Huyen sits on a bamboo chair in front of the porch, carefully holding a needle and thread to sew the old collar of the walking aid for Pippy, the dog. Each stitch is sewn carefully, hoping to make the collar more secure so Pippy can practice walking easily without pain. Nearby, Micah stands silently, observing her mother, occasionally curious, glancing at the wheelchair and then at Pippy lying obediently on the mat in front of the yard. The simple, peaceful scene makes the small house feel warmer, opening a new day full of hope for the mother and her children. After sewing the bib collar, Huyen gently checked the stitches once more to ensure that everything was sewn securely. Seeing that the bib fit well and there were no tears, she smiled contentedly and carefully attached it to Pippy and Appo's walker. Then Huyen picked up the small dog, gently placed its hind legs into the bib, fastened each buckle, and adjusted the straps to fit snugly around the body. She bent down to pet Pippy and Appo's head and softly encouraged him, end quote. Come on Pippy, let and Appo's try to walk today, end quote. Standing beside her, Micah clapped happily, excitedly waiting for the little dog to start its first steps in the dirt yard in front of the small house. After assembling the walker for Pippy, Huyen stood up and together with Micah, led the small dog out to the open ground in front of the garden. The morning was still cool, and the dewy green vegetable beds gently swayed in the light breeze. Huyen bent down to adjust the strap one last time, then gently helped Pippy stand steadily on the walker. End quote. Come on Pippy, try taking each step, end quote, she said softly. Micah stood beside her, eyes bright with excitement, her tiny hands reaching out as if to cheer on her dog friend. Pippy shyly lifted her front legs and took a step, then another, the small walker moving slowly on the ground. Seeing Pippy take a few steps, Micah clapped happily, while Huyen also smiled warmly, patiently walking beside to support the dog whenever the walker tilted. Standing on either side of Pippy, Huyen and Micah kept encouraging the little dog. Huyen smiled gently, walking slowly alongside the cart and saying, end quote, keep going Pippy, just one step at a time, you can do it, end quote. Micah also enthusiastically clapped continuously, her high-pitched voice ringing out, end quote, go Pippy! You and Appo's re so brave Pippy, end quote. Hearing the familiar cheers from the mother and daughter, Pippy lifted her head, wagged her small tail and tried to lift each paw to step forward. Seeing Pippy take a few steps on her own, Huyen happily sat down beside her. She gently stroked the soft fur and patted the dog and Appo's head, smiling brightly, end quote. Well done Pippy. You did it, keep trying like that, end quote. Hearing Huyen and Appo's praise, Pippy held her head high, her sparkling eyes looking at her, her little tongue sticking out and her tail wagging constantly. The dog softly barked in excitement as if saying, end quote, I did it, end quote. Nearby, Micah beamed with joy, hugging Pippy and Appo's neck and continuously praising her, end quote. Pippy is so clever, end quote. The laughter of the mother and daughter along with the small dog and Appo's happiness spread throughout the garden, making the morning at the bamboo house warm and full of happiness. Huyen entered the small house, the morning sunlight filtering through the crack in the door and shining on the simple earthen floor. She went to the corner of the house where familiar items were placed, then gently took the old yet sturdy bamboo basket. Huyen checked the basket and Appo's handle, brushed off a few dry leaves still attached inside, and prepared to carry it for storing things. Huyen took Pippy inside the house, placed the dog on the clean ground, and carefully removed the small walker from Pippy and Appo's hind legs. She checked each strap, gently stroked the soft fur of the dog as if worried about hurting Pippy. Then Huyen picked up Pippy, held her in her arms and softly said, end quote, Pippy, be good at home, Mom will be back soon, end quote. Pippy looked up at Huyen, her small tongue slightly sticking out as if understanding the instructions. Huyen smiled, petted Pippy and Appo's head one last time, then laid her quietly in the corner of the house before grabbing the wicker basket and stepping outside. Huyen stepped out onto the front porch, looked back at the small door once more, then gently closed it. She carefully latched it, checked thoroughly to ensure the house was secure before leaving. Then, Huyen turned to Micah standing beside her. She took a small hat and placed it on her daughter and Appo's head, adjusted the brim neatly and softly said, and quote, "Put on your hat to avoid the sun, okay?" End quote. Micah obediently stood still while her mother adjusted her hat, then took Huyen and Appo's hand. Huyen hung a bamboo basket on her shoulder, held her daughter and Appo's hand with one hand, and the two slowly walked out of the yard. The small house gradually faded into the background, and the sound of their footsteps lightly echoed on the familiar dirt road. Huyen and Micah began a new day together, carrying hope and effort amidst a life still full of difficulties. Huyen is holding Micah in her arms, with a bamboo basket hanging on her shoulder. The dirt road ahead is still long, but she continues to walk slowly, holding her daughter tightly in her arms. Micah obediently leans against her mother and Appo's shoulder, her eyes gazing at the rows of trees and the green hills stretching in front of them. The mother and daughter pass over one hill after another. Sometimes Huyen stops to rest for a moment, switches arms to hold Micah, and then continues walking. Sweat beads on her forehead, but she persists because today she has an important task to do. After a long journey, Huyen and Appo's familiar mango hill appears before her. The tall mango trees cast shade, and their branches are laden with green mangoes. Huyen places Micah down by the base of a tree, wipes her sweat with a cloth and smiles. She looks up at the mangoes on the tree, silently thinking that today she will pick the best ones to buy and sell at the market to earn extra money for their livelihood. Huyen placed the bamboo basket down beside the jackfruit tree, then bent down to look at Micah standing next to her. She gently stroked her daughter and Appo's hair and softly advised, and quote, "Micah, sit here quietly, okay? Mom is going to pick some jackfruits for a little while. Stay still here and Don and Appo's run far, all right?" End quote. Micah obediently nodded and sat down under the tree, hugging her small hat on her head. Huyen looked at her daughter for a moment, and when she saw that she had sat still, she stood up with peace of mind. Huyen went deeper into the jackfruit hill, searching for a tree with large jackfruits hanging loosely on the branches. She looked up for a moment, choosing the fullest and most beautifully colored fruits. Huyen gently lifted a large jackfruit, then tapped lightly on its shell with her palm. She listened carefully to the sound inside, then brought the fruit close to her nose, sniffing softly to check the aroma. Huyen gently tapped the jackfruit once more, and then shook her head slightly. She brought the fruit up to smell but only detected a faint aroma. The jackfruit and Appo's skin was still green and showed no signs of ripening. Huyen carefully placed her hand down, not rushing to pick it because she knew that if the jackfruit was not ripe, it would be difficult to sell at the market. She looked around the hillside and saw many other jackfruit trees ahead. Huyen slowly stepped over the dry leaves beneath her feet, heading toward another tree with larger fruits. When she arrived, she looked up at each jackfruit swaying on the branches, inspecting each one with her hand. Huyen gently tapped, sniffed, and observed carefully, but it seemed that this jackfruit tree also had not ripened yet. Huyen took a walk around the jackfruit trees but still couldn't and Appo's find a suitable fruit. She returned to where Micah was sitting and resting under a tree. Seeing her daughter still patiently waiting for her, Huyen smiled softly with relief. She took out a water bottle from her bag, opened it and handed it to Micah. Huyen gently said, and quote, "Micah, drink some water, you must be thirsty." End quote. Micah took the water bottle from her mother and Appo's hand and sipped small amounts. Huyen sat down beside her, gently wiping the sweat from her forehead. After her daughter finished drinking, She took a few sips from the bottle herself to regain energy after the long walk and searching for jackfruit in the hot sun. The mother and daughter sat resting for a while under the shade of the tree. The wind from the hill blew through, causing the jackfruit leaves to sway, bringing a sense of peace amidst a busy day of work. Huyen continued to walk past the lush mango trees, carefully searching each tree trunk. This time she stopped in front of a large jackfruit tree with a few big, round fruits resting close to the trunk. Seeing how full and ripe the fruits looked, Huyen felt it was time to harvest. She bent down, gently tapped the jackfruit and appo's skin a few times, then brought the fruit close to her nose to smell. A mild fragrance emanated, quite different from the earlier fruits. Huyen smiled, knowing that this jackfruit was perfectly ripe. She carefully hugged the fruit with one hand, while her other hand grasped the stem. Huyen applied gentle force, twisting the jackfruit away from the tree. After a few attempts, the stem snapped, and the heavy jackfruit rested securely in her arms. Hearing Micah calling out in a slightly annoyed tone, Huyen was startled and turned back. She quickly hugged the freshly picked jackfruit, stepped swiftly over the dry leaves beneath her feet to return to her sitting daughter. Placing the jackfruit down beside her, Huyen immediately bent down to look at Micah. She saw the child sitting and scratching her arms and legs repeatedly, with a look of discomfort on her face. "Mommy, it itches," Micah whispered. Huyen worriedly pulled her closer, gently checking her all over. She noticed a few tiny ants crawling on her clothes and legs, probably bitten when Micah was sitting under the tree. Huyen hurriedly brushed off the dry leaves and the remaining ants on her child and appo's clothes. As she brushed, she softly asked, "Does it hurt, sweetie? Let me see." Micah stood still in her mother and appo's arms, allowing Huyen to carefully brush off her clothes and gently soothe the spots where the ants had bitten. Seeing that her child was feeling less uncomfortable, Huyen let out a relieved sigh and hugged her close to comfort her. In the rice field, when the sun had risen high, Do was busy working with other laborers in the field. He wore simple clothes and a worn hat to shield himself from the intense heat of the harvest day. Do bent down, carefully cutting each bundle of ripe yellow rice with a sickle. The heavy rice stalks leaned with each swing of his hand. Sweat dotted his forehead, but Do remained patient, gathering each bundle of rice into small piles. The sound of the sickle cutting rice blended with the chatter of the laborers, creating a lively atmosphere in the field. Huyen continued walking along the mango trees on the hill, carefully observing each fruit. After a while of searching, she stopped in front of a mango tree with a large fruit. Its skin changed color and emitted a light fragrance. Huyen gently tapped the mango and then brought it to her nose to smell. This time, she could sense the characteristic aroma of ripe mango. Huyen smiled, knowing she had found another delicious fruit to sell at the market. She wrapped her arms around the mango, used her other hand to hold the stem, and gently broke it off. The mango detached from the branch and rested comfortably in Huyen and appo's arms. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, placed the mango on the ground beside her, and then carried each fruit back to where Micah was sitting and resting. Seeing my mother turn back, Micah happily looked up. Huyen placed the jackfruit beside her, looking at the woven basket that was gradually getting fuller. She smiled gently and asked her daughter if she still felt itchy or uncomfortable anywhere, then prepared to continue searching for more delicious jackfruits to sell at the market. Huyen continued to search for more delicious jackfruits in the hill. After walking a while, she looked up and saw a large jackfruit hanging quite high on the branch. The jackfruit was plump and emitted a faint aroma, indicating that it was ripe. She looked up at the tree for a moment, then decided to climb up to pick it. She held the trunk firmly, carefully climbing step by step onto the lower branches. Although her hands were accustomed to heavy work, she still moved very slowly to stay safe. When she reached near the jackfruit, Huyen gently patted it and then brought it close to her nose to smell again. The sweet aroma spread out, and she smiled because she had found the right ripe jackfruit. Huyen used her strength to break the stem, pulling the jackfruit away from the branch, then hugged it tightly to her chest. Afterwards, she carefully climbed down from the tree, placed the jackfruit on the ground, and wiped the sweat from her forehead. Huyen carried the jackfruit back to where Micah was sitting and waiting. Does still diligently working. After cutting a section of the field, he bends down to gather the golden rice stalks into small bundles. He uses string to tightly bind each stalk of rice, checking carefully to prevent any grains from falling out. His hands work swiftly amidst the summer sun. When a large bundle is finished, he leans over and lifts it onto his shoulder with effort. He carries each heavy bundle along the edge of the field, walking slowly to the collection point. Sweat beads roll down his face, but he persists, because each bundle he brings back is the result of a hard day and Appo's work. Upon reaching the collection point, he gently places the bundle down, arranging it neatly with the others. Seeing the pile of rice growing larger, he returns to the field to continue his work. Going to another jackfruit tree, she suddenly saw a large jackfruit hanging on a high branch, its skin beginning to change color and emitting an enticing aroma. Huyen looked up. She carefully clung to the trunk, climbing higher step by step. The jackfruit branches swayed slightly under her weight, but Huyen maintained her balance, trying to get closer to the fruit. When she reached it, Huyen checked again with her hand. She gently tapped the skin of the jackfruit, brought it to her nose to smell, and realized that this one was perfectly ripe. Huyen used her strength to break the stem, hugged the heavy jackfruit, and slowly climbed down. Putting her foot on the ground, she carried the large and heavy fruit on her shoulder. Huyen held the jackfruit tightly, taking each step along the dirt path on the hill, heading back to where Micah was waiting. Huyen just placed the jackfruit down beside her when she saw Micah repeatedly scratching her hand. She quickly approached her daughter, her face showing clear concern. Huyen bent down, gently pulled Micah and Appo's hand back and checked each part of her body. She saw many red ant bites on her legs, arms, and some on her clothes. Perhaps when sitting under the tree, Micah accidentally sat near an ant nest, and they crawled onto her. End quote. Does it hurt a lot? End quote. Huyen asked softly, checking and gently blowing on the bites to ease her discomfort. Micah looked at her mother, her eyes slightly teary from itching and irritation. Huyen quickly brushed off the dry leaves still clinging to her daughter, gently massaged the bites, and then hugged Micah to comfort her. After the bundles of rice had been cut down, he pulled a large tarp covered with the harvested rice stalks close to the edge of the field for easier gathering. He held both ends of the tarp tightly and pulled gradually. The golden rice stalks slid gently across the ground, forming large piles along the edge. Even though it was sunny and sweat streamed down his face, he did not stop. When pulling the tarp to the collection point, he bent down to gather each small bundle of rice, neatly stacking them before carrying them on his arms. He crossed the field and Appo's edge, his feet muddy, and took turns bringing each bundle of rice to be stacked with the previously gathered ones. When the last bundles of rice were brought to the collection point, he gently brushed off the dust on his hands and stood to rest for a moment. The landowner approached, looked at the neatly gathered bundles of rice, and handed him the payment. He carefully counted the money in his hand and then put it into his pocket. He smiled, extended his hand to shake the landowner and Appo's hand and sincerely said, end quote, "Thank you, sir, for hiring me today. I will go now." End quote. The landowner also nodded happily, thanking He for working diligently to help him complete the harvest. He put on his old hat again, looked at the golden rice fields behind him one last time, and then left. His legs were still tired after a day of labor, but he felt relieved inside because he had earned some extra money through his own hard work. Huyen looked back at the jackfruits she had harvested after a hard morning on the hill. She bent down one by one, lifting each jackfruit and placing it into the bamboo basket. The smaller jackfruits were neatly arranged inside, with a few dry leaves added to prevent damage during transport. There was still a large jackfruit lying beside her. Huyen looked at it and decided not to put it in the basket because it was too heavy. She bent down, used her strength to lift the jackfruit, placed it on her shoulder, and held it firmly. After checking the bamboo basket, Huyen turned to Micah, who was standing nearby. She reached out her hand to hold her daughter and Appo's hand. Micah obediently took her mother and Appo's hand and stepped close to Huyen. With one hand carrying the bamboo basket, one shoulder supporting the large jackfruit, and the other hand holding Micah, Huyen slowly left the jackfruit hill. The dirt road ahead was still long, but seeing the number of jackfruit she had harvested, she felt happier because today, mother and daughter would have more to sell at the market. The mother and daughter stepped down the path between the rows of trees, with the jackfruit hill gradually disappearing into the distance behind them. Seeing that the sun is still not set, and there is still plenty of time in the day, I am not in a hurry to return. I take the opportunity to pass by another field to ask for extra work, hoping to earn a little more money after a day and Appo's labor. When I arrive, I see that the rice fields need help, so I quickly get to work. The large rice bags have already been gathered, and I bend down, using both hands to lift each bag and bring them to a neat pile. I carefully tie the mouths of each rice bag with string, checking each knot to prevent the rice from falling out. The heavy rice bags make my shoulders tired, but I still try to do each task carefully and securely. He bent down and used both hands to hold each bag. The heavy rice bags slowed his steps, but still tried to lift them and place them neatly into the rua cart beside him. He arranged each rice bag carefully, adjusting to prevent the cart from tilting during movement. When the cart was full, he grasped both handles and pushed it toward the drying yard. The path from the field to the drying yard was uneven, with some sections muddy, making pushing the cart even more difficult. He gritted his teeth and exerted all his strength, taking each step to carry the rice bags across. Upon reaching the drying yard, he set the rua cart aside and began preparing to dry the rice. He bent down, pulled each bag closer, and used his hands to open the tied knot at the mouth of the bag. When the bag was opened, he carefully tilted it down so that the golden rice grains slowly spilled onto the drying yard. The sound of rice falling rustling blended with the gentle breeze in the afternoon. He used his hands to spread the rice evenly into thin layers on the ground, ensuring the rice was exposed to the sunlight and dried uniformly. He worked meticulously, making sure no grains were left inside the bag. After pouring out one bag, he set the empty bag aside and continued opening the next one. Although his shoulders were tired after a whole day of work, he remained patient, completing each step with the hope that the batches of rice would dry thoroughly. Huyen held Micah and Appo's hand as they followed the dirt path to the mango hill owner and Appo's house. She still carried a large jackfruit on her shoulder, and her bamboo basket was filled with freshly picked mangoes. When they arrived, Micah saw some goats near the pen and happily ran over. Micah gently offered each goat a handful of leaves. The goats approached and ate happily, making Micah smile with delight. As for Huyen, she carefully brought the jackfruit into the house. She placed each fruit in front of the mango grove owner for inspection. He picked them up, examined them gently, and looked over each one, finding all of them to be beautiful and perfectly ripe. Huyen stood nearby waiting. After inspecting each jackfruit, the mango grove owner carefully calculated the amount of money for the fruits Huyen had picked. He recorded the quantity, considered each one, and then quoted a price to her. Hearing this, Huyen took out the money she had prepared. She counted each bill carefully and handed it to the mango grove owner for payment. He received the money, checked it again and nodded happily. Huyen thanked him for allowing her and her mother to pick the jackfruit. She turned to call Micah, who was standing nearby, and gently took her daughter and Appo's hand. The mother and daughter stood in front of the house, politely bowing to the mango grove owner. End quote. "We greet you, sir, we are leaving," end quote. The owner smiled and waved goodbye to the mother and daughter. Huyen slung the woven basket over her shoulder, holding Micah and Appo's hand with her other hand, while carrying the large jackfruit on her shoulder. Mother and daughter leave the Mango Hill owner and Appo's house, walking along the dirt road toward the market area. Huyen walks faster, hoping that today and Appo's mangoes will sell at a good price to help cover their living expenses. When they reach the market area, Huyen finds a vacant spot by the roadside and gently places her bamboo basket on the ground. She takes a deep breath after the long walk, wiping the sweat from her forehead. Huyen takes out a piece of cloth she brought, spreading it neatly on the clean ground. She carefully opens the bamboo basket, taking out each mango one by one and placing them on the cloth. The yellow-green mangoes are arranged neatly, with the larger ones at the back and the smaller ones at the front for easy viewing by buyers. The large mango on her shoulder is also placed down, gently wiping off the dust on its outside before arranging it with the other mangoes. She adjusts each fruit to look attractive, hoping that these delicious mangoes will attract buyers. After a while, a female customer walked past Huyen and Appo's jackfruit stall. Seeing the neatly arranged jackfruits, all large and beautiful, she stopped to buy one. Huyen happily stood up, took out a perfectly ripe jackfruit. She carefully cut the jackfruit in half with a knife. When the green shell was peeled away, the golden, fragrant, sweet, and plump segments inside appeared. The customer looked at the attractive jackfruit segments, appearing satisfied. Huyen took each portion of jackfruit, placed it on the scale to weigh the correct amount for the customer. The scale gently moved. Huyen looked at the weight and honestly quoted the price. After the customer agreed, Huyen put the jackfruit into a bag, handed it directly to the buyer. The customer received it, smiled, praised the jackfruit as delicious, and paid Huyen. Huyen received the money, carefully stored it in her small bag. Seeing the first piece of jackfruit sold, she felt happier because the effort from early morning of the mother and daughter was beginning to pay off. Nearby, Micah sat obediently beside her mother, watching the busy people passing by in the crowded market. After selling to the first customer, Huyen looked at the remaining mango segments on the stall. Worried about dust from people and passing vehicles settling on them, and concerned about flies landing on the mangoes, she took a clean plastic bag from her woven basket. Huyen gently opened the bag and covered the bright yellow mango segments just cut. She carefully adjusted the edges of the bag to hide the mangoes but left a small gap for air circulation, helping the mangoes stay fresh. Once finished, Huyen checked again. Seeing that the mango segments were carefully covered, she felt reassured and sat down beside the stall. Seeing Micah sitting quietly in a corner, silently watching her mother sell goods, Huyen smiled lovingly. She opened her plastic bag to cover the pieces of jackfruit, chose a ripe, plump and fragrant piece. Huyen carefully removed the seeds from the jackfruit, then sat down next to her daughter. She gently brought the piece of jackfruit to Micah and Appo's mouth and said, end quote, "Eat a piece of jackfruit, okay?" End quote. Micah obediently opened her mouth. Huyen gently fed her small bites, waiting until she finished chewing before giving the next piece. Watching Micah eat happily, her eyes curved with delight at the sweet taste of the jackfruit, Huyen Kuden and Appo's hide her happy smile. She took a small cloth to gently wipe away the sticky juice from the corner of her child and Appo's mouth, stroked Micah and Appo's hair and said, end quote, "Stay here quietly, I and Appo's I'll sell a little more jackfruit, then the two of us will go home," end quote. Micah nodded softly, smiled, hugged her mother and sat obediently beside her. After finishing all the work, De finally let out a sigh of relief. He rested temporarily by the edge of the field, stretching his tired legs after hours of labor. De slowly wiped the sweat streaming down his forehead and sunburned face. His shirt was soaked with sweat, but he only smiled contentedly because he had completed the task. After a short rest, De picked up the water jug beside him, taking large sips. The cool water eased his thirst after a day working in the sun. He exhaled softly, sitting quietly and gazing at the endless golden rice fields before him. Just as I finished resting, the landowner approached with a gentle smile. She carried the payment for the day and Appo's work and handed it directly to me. End quote. Thank you for your help today. You worked very hard. End quote. I politely took the money, bowed my head to thank the landowner. I carefully counted the wages, then folded and stored the money in my shirt pocket. End quote. Thank you ma and Appo's m. If you need anything just call me. End quote. The landowner nodded with a smile. I lifted my hat, brushed off the dust and straw still on my clothes, then turned to leave the rice field. I walked slowly along the dirt road, the late afternoon sun shining over the harvested fields. Although my body was still tired from a hard day and Appo's work, I felt a lightness in my heart because I had earned my wages through my own labor. Huyen and Appo's small durian stall gradually attracted more customers. The sweet aroma of ripe yellow durian segments spread, causing many shoppers to stop and ask to buy. Huyen always greeted each customer with a gentle and friendly smile. Whenever someone wanted to buy, she carefully opened the plastic bag to remove dust, used a knife to separate each golden segment, and then placed them on the scale. She weighed the exact amount requested, clearly quoted the price, and then put the durian into a clean bag to hand over to them. The customers were all satisfied because the ripe durian was fragrant, with thick and sweet segments. As one buyer left, another would come. Huyen sold quickly but still kept an eye on Micah sitting obediently beside her. Soon the durian on the mat gradually ran out. Whole durian fruits were also cut open and sold out one after another. By the last customer, Huyen gathered the remaining durian segments, weighed them carefully, and sold everything out. Seeing the mat only with a few leaves and some durian fibers left, Huyen smiled lightly with relief. Huyen tidied up the sales area. She quickly folded the plastic bag, placed the bamboo basket neatly to one side, and sat down to rest for a moment beside Micah. Huyen took out the money earned from selling jackfruit today from her small bag. She carefully arranged each banknote neatly, then sat down to count each amount again. Her callous fingers slowly turned each bill, checking carefully to avoid mistakes. After counting once, Huyen counted again to be sure. Looking at the amount of money earned after a hard day of climbing the hill to pick jackfruit, she gently smiled with relief. Micah sat beside her, watching her mother with curious eyes, following every movement. Huyen carefully stored the money into her small bag, then stroked her daughter and Appo's hair. End quote. Today we sold all the jackfruit. End quote, her mother said. End quote. What would you like me to buy for you? End quote. In the quiet small garden, the tree branches gently sway in the wind. Amidst the green of the vegetables, the silhouette of a man walking slowly along the dirt path leading to the small house is faintly visible. That is Da. In his hand he carries a bag of rice, walking carefully so as not to drop or bump into the vegetable beds in the garden. He looks towards Huyen and Appo's house with a kind but slightly cautious gaze. After a hard day of work, Da used part of his wages to buy a bag of rice to bring to the two mother and child. He didn't and Appo's want Huyen to worry too much about daily meals, especially knowing she always has to try to care for Micah alone. Da gently walks up to the small house. He reaches out to open the door and carefully steps inside. The house remains quiet, with light from outside streaming through the cracks in the door, making the interior feel warmer. He places the bag of rice he is carrying on the small bamboo table in the middle of the house. The rice bag sits neatly on the table, a simple gift he wants to give to Huyen and her mother. Under the ground, Pippy the dog is lying down, watching his every move. Seeing Da approach, Pippy gently lifts his head and happily wags his tail. Da crouches down, gently petting Pippy and Appo's fur. He strokes the small dog and Appo's head, checks the walking frame beside him, and smiles when he sees Pippy is still healthy. Pippy lies still, enjoying the familiar strokes. He went to the corner of the house, took out Pippy and Appo's familiar bamboo bowl. I held the scoop of water, gently poured a full bowl of clean water, then lowered it and placed it neatly in front of the dog. End quote. Pippy, drink some water. End quote. Hearing the call, Pippy lifted his head, slowly crawled over to the bowl. I sat beside him, gently stroked his back while Pippy lowered his head to drink each sip of water. Watching Pippy drink happily, I smiled. I patted the little dog and Appo's head as if to encourage him. I pulled the small bamboo chair closer to the porch. He sat down, his hands resting on his knees, silently gazing at the front yard. The gentle afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees in the garden, casting a warm golden hue over the small house. He sat still, his eyes looking far into the dirt road in front of the house, as if lost in thought. In his mind, the image of Huyen and Micah struggling every day to make a living appeared. He remembered the times he saw Huyen building the house with her own hands, working from morning till night, always trying to be strong to take care of her daughter. He sighed softly, his hand unconsciously brushing lightly against the bamboo chair and Appo's edge. He just wanted to help the mother and daughter a little more. But he was also afraid that his concern might make Huyen feel uncomfortable. The wind from the garden blew through, causing the leaves to flutter gently. He still sat there, quietly lost in thought, in the peaceful small house that he had helped silently many times. Seeing her daughter had been with her all day, picking jackfruit and waiting for her mother to sell goods. She felt love for her child and decided to buy Micah a delicious meal. Huyen went to a small pho restaurant near the stall, carefully took a bowl of pho, and gently stirred it with a spoon to cool down the noodles and broth. Huyen scooped a little pho onto a spoon, blew on it lightly to cool it, and then brought it to her mouth. When it was just warm enough, she placed it in front of Micah. End quote. Eat it and Appo's. Still hot, I and Appo's. I'll blow on it for you. End quote. Micah obediently opened her mouth and ate each spoonful her mother fed her. Huyen patiently sat beside her, feeding her while gently wiping the broth droplets from the corner of her mouth. Watching her daughter eat happily, Huyen smiled. Despite many hardships in life, as long as she saw Micah well-fed and happy, she felt that her efforts today had not been in vain. They left the bamboo chair, slowly walking towards the corner of the kitchen where the earthen stove is located, the one he had made before. This small stove has helped the mother and child cook every day. He sat down in front of the stove, gently touching the edge of it. They lifted the teapot placed on the stove and examined the baked clay underneath. Over time, small cracks have started to appear on the surface of the stove. The outer layer of earth has dried out and chipped in some places due to the intense heat from Huyen and Appo's cooking. They lightly brushed off the layer of dust, his eyes showing a hint of worry. He knew this stove had gone through many days with Huyen, from simple meals to moments when mother and child had to overcome hardships. He sat looking at the stove for a while, silently thinking that perhaps he needed to repair it before the cracks became more serious. They gently stood up, remembering the spots that needed reinforcement so that next time he could help Huyen rebuild a sturdier stove. They went to the bamboo table. He opened his bag and took out the money he had just received after a hard day and Appo's work. After buying some rice to bring to Huyen and Micah, they still had a small amount of money left in his hand. He carefully counted each bill. His callous fingers gently turned each page, checking thoroughly to avoid mistakes. After counting, they gently folded the bills neatly. He looked at the remaining amount in his hand for a moment, then carefully opened the top of the rice bag. They placed the small amount of money inside the rice bag, closed the opening, tied the string tightly, and checked once more to ensure the bag wouldn't and Appo's burst open. They looked back at the small house one more time and then slowly stood up. He walked over to where Pippy was lying on the ground and sat down beside the little dog. They gently stroked Pippy and Appo's head, caressed its soft fur and smiled. End quote. Be good at home, Pippy, and help watch the house for Huyen and Appo's mom. End quote. Pippy lifted its head and wagged its tail softly, as if understanding his words. De patted the dog's head one more time before standing up. He walks to the door, looks back at the bamboo table where the rice bag is still neatly placed, observes the familiar ground stove and courtyard. De gently closes the door quietly, carefully sealing it to keep the house safe. Before leaving, he stands still for a moment, his gaze directed toward the road where Huyen and Micah will return. Then De turns and steps out of the small garden. His figure gradually disappears behind the row of trees, leaving the peaceful house and Pippy the dog lying there, waiting for Huyen and her daughter to return. Micah ate each spoonful of pho that her mother fed her until her stomach was full. The girl shook her head, gently pushed her mother and Appo's hand away and whispered that she didn't and Appo's want to eat anymore. Huyen looked at her daughter and smiled gently. She took a cloth to wipe Micah and Appo's mouth lightly, seeing that her daughter had eaten enough and didn't and Appo's force more. Seeing that there was still some pho left in the bowl, Huyen thought of Pippy being home alone. She carefully scooped a portion of noodles and a few tasty slices of pork into a clean small bag. Huyen tied the bag shut, set it aside and said to Micah, "I and Appo's I'll save this to bring home for Pippy. She's probably waiting for us at home." Then Huyen sat down, took the remaining noodles and pork leg. She ate slowly while watching the crowd passing by in the market. A long day of harvesting jackfruits and selling goods had finally tired her. But she felt happy inside because today, mother and daughter had earned a little extra money. Micah sat quietly beside her mother, patiently waiting. The mother and daughter rested for a while before packing up to return to their small house, where Pippy was waiting for them. After eating, Huyen carefully tidied up her belongings and placed the small bag containing the noodles and pork for Pippy into the bamboo basket. She slung the basket over her shoulder, checked that the money from selling the jackfruit was stored securely, and then stood up. Huyen smiled and reached out her hand to Micah. The girl obediently took her mother and Appo's hand. Mother and daughter held hands and left the busy market area, slowly walking along the familiar dirt path to go home. The evening light gradually dimmed, with golden rays stretching along the path. On both sides were lush green fields and trees gently swaying in the wind. Micah happily chattered to her mother about the goats on the jackfruit hill and the delicious bowl of pho they had earlier, while Huyen simply smiled and listened, occasionally gently patting her child and Appo's head. After a long journey, Micah was tired and fell asleep at some point, her small face resting lightly on her mother and Appo's shoulder, breathing steadily and peacefully. Huyen gently bent down to lift her daughter, carefully wrapping her arms around Micah so she wouldn't and Appo's wake up. One hand held the bamboo basket securely, while the other cradled her daughter in her arms as she slowly stepped through the familiar gate. Huyen gently pushed the door open and stepped into the house. She moved very quietly so as not to wake Micah. In her mother and Appo's arms, the girl was still peacefully sleeping, her small face calm after a day of going up the hill and to the market with her mother. Huyen used her foot to close the door quietly, and then slowly approached the bamboo bed in the corner of the house. She gently bent down, laid Micah straight on the bed, carefully adjusted the small pillow under her head. Huyen pulled the thin blanket over Micah and Appo's body, gently stroked her hair and patted her forehead. Seeing that Micah was still sleeping soundly, she smiled softly, quietly sat beside the bed for a few seconds to watch her before getting up to do the remaining chores in the small house. Huyen gently stepped outside to put away the bamboo basket and tidy up the belongings she had just brought back from the market. As she walked past the bamboo table in the middle of the house, she suddenly stopped. There was a carefully tied bag of rice on the table that was not there earlier in the morning before she left the house. Surprised, Huyen approached, placed her hand on the rice bag, and slowly untied the knot. When she opened the bag, she saw inside some fresh white rice grains. Just as she was about to tie it up again, Huyen suddenly noticed a neatly folded stack of money placed in the corner of the bag. She held the money in her hand. Without hesitation, Huyen quickly put down the rice bag and ran out to the yard. She looked around the small garden, from the green vegetable beds to the tree at the front porch, hoping to see the person who had quietly brought the rice bag. And quote, "Hey, is anyone here?" And quote. Huyen and Appo's voice echoed across the quiet yard, but only the gentle rustling of the leaves responded. She continued to walk quickly to the gate, glancing along the dirt road leading to the house. The road was still quiet with no one in sight. Huyen stood still for a moment, looking into the distance with a thoughtful expression. She looked again at the bamboo fence on both sides, then towards the field and the path around the garden, but still saw no sign of anyone. Knowing that the kind-hearted person had left long ago, Huyen sighed softly. She pursed her lips, her heart filled with gratitude, but also a hint of regret for not having the chance to say thank you. After a few minutes standing silently at the gate, Huyen slowly turned back into the small house, still holding in her heart the emotion of the unexpected gift that someone had quietly left for her and her mother. She held the money she just found in the rice bag and sat down on a small bamboo chair beside the table. The bills were neatly held in her rough hands from working. Huyen didn't and Appo's rushed to put them away, only quietly looked at them for a long time. Her eyes became distant, as if she was thinking about the person who silently helped her and her mother. In Huyen and Appo's mind, memories of difficult days past appeared. Early mornings waking up to pick vegetables, times hustling at the market, moments of worry about how to get through tomorrow. This small amount of money was not large, but for her and her mother, it was an incredibly valuable help. Huyen gently clenched the bills in her hand, feeling both grateful and troubled. She wondered who had kindly left this gift without expecting a thank you. Huyen sat quietly for a moment and then sighed softly. She didn't and Appo's want to think any longer, only wanted to focus on the immediate tasks for her small house and her loved ones. She stood up, pulled the rice bag closer. Huyen opened the bag, carefully pouring each stream of white rice into the jar placed in the corner of the house. The falling rice grains made a familiar rustling sound. She used her hand to level the surface of the rice in the jar, and then carefully covered it with the lid. Huyen remembered the portion of noodles and pork sausage she had saved at the market. She took out a small bag, opened it gently and brought it to where Pippy was lying. Huyen took the food meant for the little dog and put it into Pippy and Appo's bowl. She placed the bowl in front of him and gently called, and quote, "Pippy, eat," end quote. Hearing the call, Pippy lifted his head, slowly approached the bowl, and happily ate little by little. Huyen sat beside him watching the small dog eat eagerly, a gentle smile on her lips. Huyen stood up and went to the corner of the kitchen. She took out the familiar small pot and placed it neatly beside the newly filled rice jar. Huyen opened the lid of the jar and used a small bowl to scoop just enough rice for the dinner for her and her mother. She put the rice into the pot and then took it to the water basin. Her familiar hands gently rinsed each grain of rice, washing it several times until the water was clearer. After finishing, Huyen poured enough water into the pot, covered it, and placed it on the earthen stove. She lit the fire under the stove, and the small flames gradually burned up, spreading warmth throughout the house. Huyen sat beside the stove, using a stick to adjust the flame so the rice would cook evenly. The glow of the fire reflected on her face, which looked tired after a long day, but inside she felt more relieved. While waiting for the rice cooker to finish cooking on the stove, Huyen stepped out into the small garden behind the house. The evening light had softened, and the vegetable beds in the garden gently swayed with each light breeze. She went to the lush sweet potato vine, bent down to select the youngest shoots. Huyen and Appo's hands gently plucked each sprout, picking just enough for the two of them for dinner. The vibrant green sweet potato shoots were gradually gathered into a small bundle. Huyen carefully checked each sprout, discarding any old or worm-eaten leaves, keeping only the fresh, tender parts. After harvesting, she carried the bundle of sweet potato shoots back into the house, washed them thoroughly, and placed the vegetables on a bamboo table to prepare a simple dish for dinner. The water in the rice cooker on the stove gradually decreased. When she turned around to look, she saw that the rice was already out of water, and a gentle steam was rising from the lid. Huyen approached the stove, using a small stick to nudge the red embers at the bottom to reduce the fire. She carefully moved the burning sticks aside, allowing the remaining heat to help the rice continue cooking evenly without burning. Then Huyen used a cloth to protect her hand as she gently lifted the rice cooker off the stove. She placed the pot on a pile of hot ashes nearby, where the warmth could still keep the rice warm for a little longer. Huyen suddenly heard Micah calling from inside the house. She quickly wiped her hands and hurried inside. Micah had woken up after her nap, sitting on the bed with her eyes still a little sleepy. Seeing her mother come in, Micah gently scratched the area bitten by ants. Huyen approached to check and was worried to see that the ant bites on her child and Appo's body had swollen even more. The red spots appeared, making Micah a bit uncomfortable, and she occasionally reached out to scratch. Huyen gently held her child and Appo's hand back and softly said, "Don't and Appo's scratch anymore, sweetie. The more you scratch, the itchier it will get." She went to get the ointment, sat down beside Micah. Huyen carefully applied a drop of medicine to each ant bite, her movements gentle to avoid hurting her daughter. Micah sat quietly in her mother and Appo's arms, occasionally grimacing from the slight stinging but remaining obedient as her mother took care of her. Huyen applied the medicine while softly blowing on the swollen area, then stroked her child and Appo's head. "It will stop itching soon, my good girl," she said. Seeing Micah and Appo's discomfort lessen, Huyen felt relieved. She held her daughter for a moment, feeling at ease knowing she had been cared for after a long day of accompanying her mother everywhere. Huyen washed the bunch of morning glory freshly picked from the garden, removed the old leaves, and put it into a pot of boiling water on the stove. The lush green stems gradually softened, releasing a simple, fragrant aroma of a hometown dish. After boiling the vegetables, Huyen took them out to drain and set them aside. Then she took the chicken meat she just bought at the market, washed it thoroughly, and cut it into bite-sized pieces. Huyen turned on the stove under the ground, added a little oil to the pan. When the oil was hot, she put the chicken into the pan and stir-fried, turning the pieces to brown evenly. The aroma of the chicken combined with the spices spread throughout the small kitchen. She seasoned it just right and continued to stir-fry until the chicken was golden and fragrant. On one side was a plate of boiled green taro leaves, and on the other side was a hot stir-fried chicken dish. Although it was a simple meal for Huyen, it was a complete and warm meal after a long day. When the dishes were prepared, Huyen took out a small bamboo table to the middle of the house. She sequentially placed a hot rice pot, a plate of fresh boiled sweet potato leaves, and fragrant stir-fried chicken on the tray. Once everything was ready, Huyen called Micah. "Micah, come eat rice." Hearing her mother and Appo's call, Micah obediently got off the bed and went to her mother. Huyen pulled out a chair for her to sit, gently scooped food into her bowl. Tonight and Appo's dinner was different from usual. Besides the familiar sweet potato leaves from the garden, the mother and daughter also had some chicken that Huyen bought at the market. The aroma of the chicken made Micah happy, her eyes brightening as she looked at the more abundant tray than usual. Huyen scooped a small piece of chicken, let it cool, and then put it into her child and Appo's bowl. She watched Micah eat happily, feeling warm inside. "Eat a little more, okay?" Micah ate while smiling, and Huyen also sat down to eat her own rice. After a tiring day of harvesting jackfruit and selling goods at the market, finally, the mother and daughter had a simple but fulfilling dinner. After dinner, Huyen tidied up the bamboo tray, washed the dishes, and put everything away in the corner of the kitchen. The small house gradually became quieter after a busy day. Micah, full and sitting beside her mother with a happy face. Huyen looked at her daughter, gently stroked her hair and smiled. Today, despite the hard work of going up the hill early in the morning to pick jackfruit and selling goods at the market, the two of them had a more delicious meal than usual. In the corner of the house, Pippy had also eaten a full meal. The rice mixed with chicken that Huyen prepared for the small dog. Pippy lay beside the familiar walker, eyes half closed in peaceful contentment. Outside in the yard, night was gradually covering the small garden. A gentle breeze blew through the trees, and the light from the house cast a warm glow. Another day has ended for Huyen and Micah. Despite many difficulties in life, their small house is filled with love, simple meals, and hope for tomorrow. Huyen hugs Micah to her chest, looks at Pippy peacefully lying beside her, and together they enjoy the peaceful moment at the end of the day. If everyone loves Huyen and Micah and Apos, mother and daughter, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and leave a word of encouragement for the two of them to see the next developments. Every follow and every loving comment from everyone will be a source of comfort and strength for Huyen to try to get through difficult times. Thank you all very much.